this. I travel all over the world. I've been doing that for 40 years. That means on every continent except Antarctica. Nothing down there but scientists and military. So, yes, I guess that's kind of an unusual life, traveling not as a tourist, but really in depth on every continent for 4 decades. So you might wonder, well, how did that come about? Why do I do that? So obviously I'm dressed differently. I'm dressed in the traditional monk attire of someone who is what we might call a professor in bhakti yoga. You know, so many students go to university, but very few become professors. So similarly, in the bhakti yoga school, most, they practice at home, their jobs, their work, but I chose to be a specialist. Don't expect everyone to do that. Why did I choose to be a specialist? Well, I wanted the highest knowledge and the highest pleasure. In the Western world, I'd be known as a monk. In the East, I'd be known as a Swami. Swami means one who has taken up the career to master his own mind and senses. That may not be such a desirable characteristic in the market economy. I don't know if you remember when you applied for college, and when you've applied for some job, did you see the question, can you control your mind and senses?
You're right.
Indeed, did you see the question, do you know exactly who and what you are? Those questions aren't considered very crucial these days. I often tell a story in my travels because I speak at lots of universities. I just, a couple weeks ago, was in Toronto for about 10 days speaking at various universities there, including University of Toronto. When I was 14, my father, he wanted to bond with me, especially because I was more under my mother's influence, so he wanted to deepen his connection. So he sat me down and said, son, what do you think is the meaning of life? Any of your parents ever say that to you? No? Anyone know it? It was kind of special for my father to do that because, you know, his hero was Hugh Hefner.
Okay.
So, anyway, he sat me down and so what do you think is the meaning of life? I was just 14, you know. I said, well, Dad, you know, I haven't figured it out yet. Son, I'll tell you what the meaning of life is. The meaning of life is to leave some tracks in the sand when you're gone. So I thought about it for a few minutes. Leave some tracks in the sand when you're gone. Well, Dad, you know, I'd like to know, when you're gone, where do you go? Son, that's not the point. That's not the point. It's just the tracks in the sand. Leave some tracks in the sand when you're gone. for where you go when you're gone, that's irrelevant. The whole point is to make a mark. Do something so that people will remember you when you're gone. I said, but still, I want to know. When you go somewhere, it's, point A to point B. So, where do you go when you're gone? My boy, you don't understand. So, we can see that human beings like to be renowned for something. They like to be remembered for something. Naturally, you're not thinking of what's going to be written on your tombstone. Too morbid. My father, at his funeral, he was commemorated for his love of fast cars and Italian food. What do you want in terms of your mark on the world? We must consider our education and what that education is supposed to do for us. When I was in my freshman year at Yale, my academic advisors discussed with me, so what's going to be your program? I told them that I was looking for the highest knowledge that would benefit human society and solve human society's problems. So they said, all right, we'll make a challenge. You're so concerned about solving humanity's problems. You're so concerned about what is the highest knowledge. We'll drop our, I don't know if they still call it that now, distribution requirements. You have to take one of this course, one of that course. What do they call it here? Yeah. Throw all that out. You can study whatever you like, search for the highest knowledge, the solution to human problems. And at the end of 4 years, we'll call it something. we'll call it some kind of major. Don't worry about it. And so they told me, frankly, we wish that we were courageous enough to do this when we were students. To just plunder the university for all it's worth. Just go in a certain direction, go as deep as you want, change directions, and go as deep as you want in that direction. We wish we would have done that, but we weren't brave enough. So we're going to let you do it. So I did that for 4 years. My academic advisors, when I was a freshman, they told me, and in your quest for the highest knowledge, milking the university for all it's worth, if you find the highest knowledge, please let us know. That was a hint that they didn't expect me to find any. By the time I was ready to graduate, I went to see my dean of studies, and I told him, you know, I don't see much place for myself in society as it is now, materialistic society. He just looked at me and said, you are a Yale man. You will influence the world. I thought, no way. I'm not interested in leaving a mark on this world. But since that time, I've been around the world at least 15 times. Been on every continent except Antarctica. Even a stint, an 8-year stint of teaching knowledge of Bhakti Yoga behind the Iron Curtain in the old communist Europe days. So, I never expected that life would turn out that way. You might think, well, what about family? Well, yes, I'm living amongst life, but I can have the whole world as my family.
Mm-hmm.
I can go on any continent in the world and I've got friends. I've got deep relationships, associates. So in this way, I'm just giving you a short synopsis so you can, well, who is he anyway? What is going to be your future in terms of the mark you leave on the world? Is it something we should be concerned about? There's something that social psychologists call the pool of concern, which is limited. Everyone has a certain amount of space in your pool of concern for accommodating worries, anxieties. You can only handle so much, because after all, you've got to make it through the day and night, right? You've got financial considerations. Then you have to think about trying to get some peace of mind. You've got to think about, dealing with physical desires. And then there's social pressure and social perceptions. It's all part of college life, right? Demands of the mind, demands of the body, demands that are perceived around you. What's everyone thinking about? Is there going to be something more than that? Certainly we have to take care of the body. And we are members of society. But should we go deeper than that? This is a question we want to discuss tonight. Because what I'm going to be advocating is a wisdom culture. And I'll be seeking to elicit your participation in a wisdom culture. In other words, yes, you got to maintain yourselves, you got to support yourself. But beyond that, there's a higher purpose that should be our number one priority. If we can consider that there is knowledge beyond the material, then we can actually reach a dimension of existence beyond simply the body and mind. So that is where the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga leads. Let's look at the world situation today. Basically, you can consider the problems as 3 E's. What are those 3 E's? Environment, energy, and the economy. Those 3 E's are going to affect you. The topmost thinkers in this world have a problem how to deal with the environment, the energy situation, and the economy. How is it that we can proceed amidst these problems in a way that our individual life is meaningful and our social life, our collective life, is meaningful? This is going to become increasingly more problematic. I was speaking last night at one of our Bhakti Yoga centers nearby. I was explaining how the federal government a few years ago released statistics that approximately 45% of college students in the USA have at least one psychological disorder that requires professional treatment. So something is happening. Something is happening in our society that's causing internal breakdown. In the quest for prosperity, in the quest for social prestige, our inner fabric is deteriorating. Therefore, intelligent persons are considering perhaps our lifestyles need to be adjusted. Perhaps our lifestyles are quite a bit out of sync. So maybe you've thought in that way. But then again, you have the problem, the pool of concern. How big is your swimming pool, so to speak, of concern? I got exams coming. When are they coming? That really takes up a lot of space in the pool, doesn't it?
I skipped it to see you.
You didn't skip your exams.
Yeah.
Really? I'm really flattered.
Wow.
What else is in your pool of concern? How many of you are really concerned about the environment and climate change, though? Raise your hand. Yeah, okay. How many of you are really concerned about the economy and what's it going to be like once you emerge into the job market? Raise your hand. And I don't think anyone here is so concerned about the energy situation, right? After all, oil is unlimited. So, I want to tell you about the classic yoga text, Bhagavad Gita, known as one of the world's great literatures, simply from the literary point of view, but we're going to look at it tonight from the viewpoint of someone who wants to make the best impact on the world, who wants to try and affect the world in the highest qualitative way. And I'm sure you all have some high aspirations. You just don't want to live a humdrum life of same old, same old. You are realistic, I think, in knowing that that may well happen, but you actually are aspiring for something much more substantial with your life. Something more beneficial for everyone. It would be nice to benefit as many persons as you can, yes? But how to do that? So this is the central issue in Bhagavad Gita, the prime Bhakti Yoga text. When we talk about Bhakti Yoga, we're talking about the topmost rung of the yoga ladder. That yoga ladder begins with preliminary yogas, asanas, sitting positions, breathing exercises, pranayama. That's down at the bottom. You do need to take care of your body. But at the top of the yoga ladder is the yoga science of the ultimate connection. How to connect with the ultimate source. How to connect with the cause of all causes. Through pure love. That's actually the pinnacle of the yoga system. But leaving that aside for now, let's see how Krishna in Bhagavad Gita warms you up for reaching that topmost rung of the yoga ladder. There's a crisis in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. The main character, besides Krishna, is someone named Arjuna. And he is highly skilled. He is capable of making impact on the world. How? He's a military man, but he's a military man with total integrity, total sincerity. He's in a situation you wouldn't want to be in. Therefore, the crisis. His extended family, not his immediate mother, father, brothers, sisters, whatever, but his extended family, third cousins and all that, have become very degraded and very exploitative. So, in the yogic culture, a warrior like Arjuna is supposed to stand up for justice and protect the innocent. That's his job. He's not a poet. He's not a philosopher as we ordinarily would think. It's his job to protect the innocent society from exploitation. So this other side that's opposing him, they're very qualified materially. They're expert at material arrangements, but all their material arrangement skills result in an absence of integrity, an absence of proper dealings. Arjuna knew it's his responsibility as a military man with integrity to protect the innocent. In other words, we're not talking about an oil war. We're talking about a situation where there's actual exploitation. In Arjuna's case, the opposing side tried to kill his family, including women, children, tried to administer poison to his family, burn down his house while his family was inside, tried to disrobe his wife in a public place, which in yogic culture is considered atrocious. So there's no way that Arjuna could just be a pacifist, especially when his calling is to protect virtue and to stop exploitation. But he was hesitating to do this because he was related to the other side, through an extended kinship system, extended family system. Furthermore, he knew the major personalities on the other side. Some of them are even his former military teachers. So he decided, I can't do this. I can't do this. In that situation of crisis, he indeed had a breakdown. What's the point of life? What's the use? They're wrong, but still, I'm related to them. I know them, they're my friends. I know they're cheating, I know they're exploiting. I just can't leave a mark on the world in this way. He decided he'll just walk away from the whole scene. It was a very monumental situation. What can I compare it to? It's like the President of the USA says, I've had enough of all this partisan politics and all this gridlock and so forth. I'm out of here. I'm going to be a yoga teacher. That's what Arjuna's response was like. In that situation, Krishna had to intervene and explain to Arjuna that why should you be so caught up in what is known in yoga terminology as misidentifying the body and mind as the self. You're missing the whole point. As a military man, you're supposed to stand up for integrity and justice. You shouldn't be afraid that you'll lose your body, because actually you're not the body. This is the first lesson in meaningful impact on the world, to understand you have a non-material identity. unless we can master that first lesson in Bhagavad Gita, that there's something about me that is beyond temporariness, how are we going to make an actual solution? Generally, most people will say, although they can't explain, there's something more to me than just matter. Because just think, if you're simply matter, then why does anything matter? We can pour so much dirty dishwater down the drain. So why don't we try to pour you down the drain too? What's the difference? So the first lesson in Bhagavad Gita, the prime Bhakti Yoga text, is that we have a non-material identity that's wearing the body and mind, just like you're wearing clothes. So immediately, Krishna takes Arjuna off what we may call the material platform. Immediately. And that's when the whole instruction in Bhagavad Gita gets going. In other words, Krishna is telling you, you can't solve a problem on its same level. This is something Albert Einstein said. No problem is solved on its own level. You've got to go above the problem. So in your quest to have a mark on this world, make some impact, I'd like to present to you that the most effective way is to go to another level. Take a step up above the ordinary level of affairs. Now, how do you do that? That is the real purpose of the yoga system. Because as long as you think you are the body and mind, you're caught up in the ordinary affairs of physiology and psychology. I think some of you have wondered, is that all there is? Just dealing with physical stuff and mental stuff. It can seem quite repetitive, doesn't it? Think about your relationships you've tried to have. There was a glow at first. There was a fire at first. And then what happened? The flames die out. You try to rake the coals. And then you want to light another fire, right? What Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita is that as long as you think you're matter, you're going to try for pleasurable material experiences. But if you can understand your identity beyond matter, then you can also understand pleasure beyond matter. Let's go back and look at the world situation today, because it's that world in which you're going to try to leave a mark, leave some tracks in the sand. The problems of the world today are so interlocked and so multidisciplinary that such problems are actually befuddling our institutions. In other words, we're not actually seeing simply a climate change problem or an economic problem or a problem in this part of the world or that part of the world. We are seeing a crisis in institutions. That the problems have become so interrelated that our institutions aren't holistic enough, aren't comprehensive enough to handle these problems. Then consider your education. Yes, everyone has to earn a living. But just think, am I simply being educated to be a worker in the global economy? That's all? Or can I be educated in such a way that I can be part of a solutions generation, a wisdom culture that can benefit yourself and others? So when we think about yoga, we're not simply talking about physical postures and breathing. We are talking about the ability to have vision, the ability to diagnose, and the ability to provide remedies. That's what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Please remember those three things: vision, diagnosis, and remedies. In a wisdom culture, such knowledge is the topmost priority. But in a consumer society, our topmost priority simply becomes, how can I be an attractive worker in a globalist economy? How can I maximize my consumption and have children who will do more of the same? Sometimes we tell ourselves that, well, look, what do you want out of me? I didn't make the world this way, right? I'm just trying to live the best way I can, right? I'm just trying to, get through the day and night. If I can do that successfully. Your pool of concern is overloaded with immediate issues. As I said before, your body and mind are pushing you in certain ways. Society is pushing you in certain ways. How can you have the head space to consider anything beyond that? While taking care of our body and mind, which must be done, while having our career in whatever field, is there a way we can simultaneously prepare ourselves for leaving the best impact on the world, making the best mark? So those are the essential issues in Bhagavad Gita. The higher priorities should drive the lower, not the reverse. In other words, I understand I have a non-material identity. I understand that there's a non-material reality. That is my number one priority, and that drives my fulfillment of the lower priorities. Not that you toss out the lower priorities, but you need a higher principle to drive the lower pragmatic or practical things. But the way people are living today is the lower becomes all consuming. Reminds you of last time I was in China a few months ago. I was speaking at a big event, and I taught the persons gathered there a mantra. It wasn't the Hare Krishna mantra, but an appropriate mantra for them. We also did, just as you had kirtan here and you sang the Hare Krishna mantra, we also had kirtan. But I taught them another mantra. Mantra in the sense of how it's how the word is popularly used today. Any catchy slogan that's repeated over and over again. That's called a mantra these days. So I taught my Chinese audience this mantra. Maybe I'll try it on you. It's a very simple mantra. 4 words. Ready? Repeat after me. Work.
Work.
Buy.
Buy.
Consume.
Consume.
Die. The Chinese thought that was very appropriate. Now, obviously, you hope your life's going to be a bit more than that, right? But why? If you're just matter, why should it matter? If you're just material, what is in you that is causing you to aspire for something beyond that? Your whole focus, according to materialistic understanding, is that you should just get the best physical and mental stimulations possible, right? But you can't be satisfied with that. You know that there should be something beyond that. But where do you get that kind of knowledge? What Krishna will explain in Bhagavad Gita is that there actually is no solution to human problems on the material platform. Now, what do you think about that? Mm. You look at the political, economic, environmental problems of today. Do you actually see a solution? Most persons think, well, I'm just dealing with my limited pool of concern. Let someone else solve the problems. But do those others who you're letting solve the problems, do they actually have the knowledge to deal with such interlocking, comprehensive problems that are far beyond what a 2 or 4 year term in office can handle, or a corporate financial quarter? So in other words, the environmental, economic, and energy problems of the world today are basically mocking our institutions, because our institutions are built for dealing with single-shot problems. But the problems today are so comprehensive. We need a different kind of human being to handle the problems of today. That's why in the beginning, I was speaking of a wisdom culture in which the topmost priority is non-material knowledge. Knowledge of the non-material self and its relationship with the Supreme Self. So that is the real focus of yoga. Remember Albert Einstein's statement, a problem is never solved on its own level. So Bhagavad Gita takes that theme to its maximum import. What you're studying in terms of your particular fields can aid your spiritual development if you have the proper vision from the higher level. And that way you just don't get trapped in minutia. What speak of become trapped in just trying to make money because, hey, what else is there to do? And again, that response of resignation. Now, what do you want out of me? You know, I'm just trying to do the best I can. I didn't make the world this way, you know. And furthermore, well, that reminds me, I was speaking in Johannesburg, South Africa 3 weeks ago at the University of Johannesburg, another university called Wits. And I was telling the students there, because they're all fired up to get their share of global prosperity. It's like they're latecomers to the party, you know? And I had to explain that point to them. You guys are all ready for global consumerism. You know, the apartheid regimes disappeared 20 years ago, and now you're ready for action. But guess what? It's 5 a.m. in the morning when you showed up for the party. The place is already busted up. Broken bottles everywhere. Windows are broken. You know, people are staggering around or collapsed on the couch in a drunken stupor. And then you guys show up at 5 a.m. Party, we're ready, let's go, let's go. The party fire is practically out. What are you going to do, rake the dying embers? So I told them, how is the world going to handle everyone in the second world, what speak of the third world, trying to live the way the first world has? It can't work out environmentally, in terms of resources, in terms of space to get rid of the waste after exploiting the resources. Not only it can't work out environmentally, but even if it could work out environmentally, which it can't, all that consumerism won't satisfy you anyway. So I told them, sorry folks, you showed up too late for the party. They were a bit silent. Because they're being primed. Get an education and grab as much prosperity as you can. That's what the world's all about. But I said, you know that environmentally, this doesn't make any sense. Human beings are already living on what is said to be the equivalent of at least 1.5 planet Earths. In other words, they're overextended on their credit card. And then you come along. And it's time for you to grab your share of the party action. It can't work out. So they were a little sad. And I told them, I know what you're thinking. It's not fair. All those people in Florida, they had their share. What? All the South Africans are thinking, what about us? Why you say we show up too late? Why the party should go on? You're getting your chance. Why can't we have our chance? No. You can't do that. Although we already did it. You can't do it. The world can't handle it. The environment can't handle it. It's a tough pill to swallow. They're saying we want our day in the sun also. So then I began to explain to them that real civilization focuses on a higher level. There's no need to be resigned to, oh, this is the way the world is, what can you do? No, there's a higher level. And a wisdom culture presents that higher level. Yes, you study for your careers, but higher principles should motivate your careers. The maximum potential that you have should be developed. And that maximum potential is not simply physical and mental. This is Krishna's point in Bhagavad Gita. Within the body is the non-material particle, known in Sanskrit as the Atma, loosely known in English as the soul. And if we forget the power of our own non-material identity, we'll be trapped on the lower platforms. What kind of impact or mark can it be if we leave on the world the tracks of someone who is trapped on such lower levels of existence? We should have higher aspirations. But unless we have higher knowledge, our higher aspirations will never flourish. So we need a solutions generation that is looking for applied wisdom. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains a very interesting point. I can tell you in Sanskrit, and I'll translate into English. Jnana vijnana triptatma kutasto vijitemriya. You see, Sanskrit is a language particularly meant for matters of enlightenment, self-realization. Languages are known for different things in the world. Right? Throughout the world, English is known as the language of what? Business, commerce. Not so much now, but in the past, but still now, German is known as the language of what? Engineering. And French is known as the language of what? Similarly, Sanskrit is known as the language of enlightenment. So there are many terms in Sanskrit that don't have an English equivalent because the English language is not concerned with such topics. So anyway, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Jnana vijnana triptatma, the Atma that real self, the spiritual self, can be satisfied when it has both wisdom, jnana, and applied or experienced wisdom, vijnana. Then the self can be satisfied and your mind and senses can be controlled. You know what it's like to have mind and senses out of control, right? That's normal day and night in a consumerist society. With the proper wisdom and the proper applied wisdom, experienced wisdom, yes, you can control your mind and senses so that you can focus on the highest pleasure, which is non-material. So I'm not talking about religious belief. I'm talking about something much deeper than that. Actual laboratory experience of the non-material reality. You see, if you can provide that non-material experience to people, they won't be victimized by materialism. But if you don't know, if you haven't experienced anything better, you'll be easily manipulated by consumer society. And you'll never be able to see any solutions to the 3 E's, the environmental problems, the energy problems, the economic problems. So I'm proposing that we go to a higher level. And then your fields of study, your creation will make sense. Because your life will be driven by a higher principle. But we need knowledge of that higher principle. And we need practical experience of that higher principle, that higher pleasure. So that is what Krishna is seeking to give in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna literally means the unlimited, all-attractive source of pleasure. That is the goal of the yoga system. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes this knowledge available to you. So I've seen in my travels on every continent of the world that this knowledge, this spiritual technology, produces the biggest impact. So I'm simply here to present that to you and leave it up to you for how you want to process the proposition. Because I know that some of you here are looking for something higher. Yes, you have your studies, you have your other pursuits in life, but you're looking for something much deeper. And that something much deeper, when you get it, will bring all the other aspects of your life into balance and harmony. So therefore I'm recommending this Krishna knowledge, this wisdom culture, which will take you far beyond your limited pool of concern. How to get through the day and night, the exams next week, the social pressures, the bodily demands, the mental anxieties, the family concerns. You want your life to be more than that. In order to be more than that, your life needs the kind of wisdom and applied spiritual technology that Krishna offers in Bhagavad Gita. So I'd like to leave those thoughts with you. I could go on for hours, you know. But our time is limited. So any questions? A lot to think about, I know. I gave you a very abbreviated version. Yes.
Could you tell more about the mantra that we chanted earlier?
Work, buy, consume, die?
No. The Maha Mantra.
Oh. You're getting into the technology of spiritual sound. You see, by sound, you have become illusioned. You heard the wrong sounds, and therefore, you started thinking, I am this body, I am this mind, and I should pursue material pleasure for my body and mind. Because you heard that from others, right?
Mm.
From the time you were a little infant, you heard that kind of sound vibration. But the real meaning of mantra is sound that can free your consciousness from illusion. And not only free your consciousness from illusion, but attach your, or reattach your consciousness to Krishna, the ultimate source of pleasure. That's the real purpose of mantra. Particularly what's known as the Maha Mantra. Maha means the greatest, the topmost. This Hare Krishna mantra has that purpose, to free your mind from illusion and to attach your mind, or reattach your mind to the ultimate reality, to the ultimate source, to Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure. So those who actually take up that sonic spiritual technology, they see the results. It's not about believing in the mantra. It's about practicing the mantra and seeing the results. The first thing you'll notice is that you start to understand, I'm not this body and mind. The body and mind are just coverings. That's just the beginning though. And once you understand you're not the body and mind, then naturally you're going to see a decrease in your being harassed by physical and mental pressures. Okay? That's just the beginning. Any other questions? That was a good one. Yes.
I've noticed that, I don't know, the more I, let's just put it as pursuing a higher consciousness, the more I want to share what I learn with others, and sometimes they get it and relate, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes, even if it's maybe your own family, it's the other opposite end of the spectrum where they might even push back. I'm sure you've experienced many of both of those extremes and everywhere in between.
Exactly.
How do you, well, I don't know, what have you learned from that as you go about continuing to want to try to share this like insight with everybody you meet, and yet knowing you can't, and knowing that everyone's on their own path and may not relate?
More precise than saying they're on their own path is to say that everyone's got their own karmic history. So when you understand that this life is not all that there is, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, you take body after body in material existence, lifetime after lifetime. So you may see them as your family members and friends, but they've got a past history of countless lifetimes, and they're bringing that baggage into this lifetime. And so people are at different places in their, shall we say, spiritual evolution. So they may be your friend, they may be your family member, and you may think, well, you know, they're my people. But their karma, their karmic history is totally different.
Well, this is true, but I've made impacts on people, and so as I hear that response, I've heard that before, and, you know, they say, well, just, you know, they're where they're at, and they're, you know, as though just leave them alone, they'll, you know.
Well, I didn't say leave them alone, but
okay.
I was explaining the pragmatics.
Okay.
And then we go to step 2.
Okay. There we go.
Step 2 is that if you really care, become qualified to transform them. That's another subject that I often speak on throughout the world. You see, there are people in this world who truly want to love and care. There are persons who simply are interested in exploitation, like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's opponents. There are persons who are cruel, who are evil. I was speaking in India recently about the governmental policies of Stalin. He said, what's the problem with governing people? Why do we make such a complexity about it? It's actually so easy to govern people. It's so easy to have to have law and order and to have a properly functioning government. all you have to do is bring the people to the point of starving, and they do whatever you want. So there are people in the world like that. But then there are also the opposites, persons who truly want to care, to love. I think, should we say all of you are like that here because you've attended my talk? Yes, you want to love, you want to care. But how many persons think they should get the qualification? There are qualifications required to love and care. Let us say you have some kind of cancer. God forbid, but you have brain cancer. And I look at you, oh, I feel so sorry for you. I want to care, I want to love. Let me operate on you. Let me operate on your brain. What would you say? I want to love, I want to care.
Because you're not the doctor.
But you don't understand the warmth in my heart. It's all about feeling, isn't it? You should have said yes. You were about to say yes. You should have said yes. So you say, I'm not a doctor. Even though, but don't you understand I want to care? Huh?
I understand it,
yeah. Let me operate on your brain. Why not? I want to help. Why not?
I'm not qualified.
I'm not qualified. Well then, I say to you, if ever someone says to you, I want to love, I want to care, I want you to answer the same way. Would you have the nerve to do that?
Maybe if it was like my family.
Huh?
Only if it was someone I knew really well.
We'll remember this. We'll remind you in the future. Just think, would you answer that way to someone who said, I want to love, I want to care? Or the next time someone says to you, I love you, would you answer, what's your qualification? How many of you would do that? I don't see any men who raise their hand. What's that got to do with it? But my point is that if you truly care for persons, you'll take the time to become qualified. So that's what Krishna is urging in Bhagavad Gita. Become a qualified yogi, and then you can actually help others. Arjuna was qualified to help on the material plane and also on the spiritual plane. He was truly holistic because he had knowledge of both the material and the spiritual. So it's very good that you want to reach out to your acquaintances, but then become maximally qualified. Yes?
I was wondering, how important do you think it is to take a life of like monkshood or,
Oh, everyone should do it. No. No. Just like at so many, how many students are there at the university here?
50,000.
50,000. How many will you think, I mean, roughly, how many would become professors? Not many at all. So, there's value in being a student and then going on to your career, and there's also value in becoming a professor. So very few persons become professors and very few persons become monks. It's not absolutely required. I myself wanted to specialize in the highest knowledge and the highest pleasure. I did realize upon graduating from university that there was a link between the highest knowledge and the highest pleasure. So I wanted to be a specialist, but not everyone is cut out to be a specialist. Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita was not a monk. He was a family man and he was a military man. Yet Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him, just to shatter the conception that you had to be a monk to be a transcendentalist. Very good question. Anything else? Well, I think it's time for a snack. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much.